everyone, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you today how to do a multi-strand Shamballa style bracelet. And this can be easily done with a number of different types of cording. I'm choosing to use Chinese knotting cord in 0.8 millimeter. I'm also going to need some super glue, a thread burner, or something that you can get hot, even matches will work. I'm using 6 millimeter beads. These beads here are 10 millimeter or 12 millimeter beads, so you can use all different sizes. One I recently made also was done with seed bead cubes, so you can really vary up what you decide to do with this. So I have a number of different styles of 6 millimeter that I'm going to be working with, my knotting cord and my beads really. And then I'm also using a mini macrame board. And this is going to help me to give measurements as well as kind of hold my beads and everything in place while I'm working on it. So it's going to be hard for you to see the whole board, so I'm really going to stay kind of to the top of it so that way you can see the start of the bracelet. But it's nice because it helps give measurements on the sides, and that way I know how long my bracelet is going to be. At the end, I'll also show you how to make a slip knot. You can also check out, if you're not sure how to do macrame, check out our other macrame videos before you attempt to do a triple strand macrame. Check out the first Shamballa bracelet video, and that way it'll give you a design idea and also get you started on this one. So to start, I've cut a number of different pieces of my macrame cording. I've cut 2 pieces that are 5 feet in length, which is a little bit less than my wingspan, and they're 5 feet in length. And what I want to do is 2 pieces that are 5 feet, so that's going to be 10 feet altogether, and then another piece that is 20 inches long. So you're going to end up with 3 pieces of thread, one that's 20 inches, and then 2 that are really long that are 5 feet. After you cut your thread, what you want to do is you want to take your super glue, and you're going to go right to the ends of your cording, and you're just basically going to almost paint the super glue on the end right there. And what this is going to do is stop the end basically from pulling back and fraying, but it's also going to serve as a needle, so it makes it easier when you go to put on your beads. It's going to be easier to put those on. We're going to let that dry, and then I'm going to tell you how we're getting started. So on all ends of your cording, you're going to do this here and get your cord so that it is nice and dry at the ends before we get ready to go. So again, 2 pieces that are 5 feet in length, and then 1 piece that is 20 inches, and super gluing all the ends of your cording. To start, I'm going to double over one of my pieces of my 5 foot of thread, and I'm using my 20-inch piece as well. And what I'm going to do is, holding that half of the thread as well as the 20-inch piece, I'm going to tie a knot about 3 to 4 inches down, right about 3 inches down on my cording. So I have 3 to 4 inches that are left here on the side of the knot. You pull nice and tight, and then I'm going to get ready to work on my macrame board, and I'm going to tuck this down. My center is going to be 3. I'm tucking this down my macrame board to the back, right in that groove there, having the knot come out right at the front. I'm going to get ready to start my macrame, and then I'm going to come back and add the last piece of thread into my project. If you decide that you want to do a button clasp or anything like that, you'll want to make that loop a little bit smaller, so that way it's not as big. You want to make it as big as whatever you're going around, a knot or a button. And then you can also slide that longer piece down into the knot so that way you don't see it. To start out, we have these 3 pieces of cording, and the one piece that is the shortest piece is going to go right down to the center, and I'm going to tuck that into the bottom portion of my board so that it's down at the 3. I have 1 piece of cording then off to the right and 1 piece of cording off to the left. I'm going to do a simple macrame or hemp style knot, and what that is I'm going to use the 3 pieces of cording for that. So I have my 1 piece of cording here that I'm going to make a little bit of a 4 out of, or a snoopy ear or a kite or whatever you want to call it. So I have my piece to the right here that I've bent into the shape of a backwards 4, or into the 4 here, backwards, and it's going over the top of the center strand. My piece that's on the left is going to come over that cording on the left-hand side, and then it's going to tuck underneath and come out through that top of the 4 there, or through Soupy's nose. I'm going to push it up nice and tight, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side of my board. So I'm going to make my 4, let that hang out there. I'm going to take my right piece of cording now, come over that left cording, and then I'm going to pick it up and have that tuck underneath and come out underneath my cording so that it's coming out right underneath and through that nose. Pull nice and tight, and that's going to get me my first 2 little knots. You can watch some of our other videos and notice that if you continue to go with the right side only, you're going to get a spiral shape. It's switching over, doing it right and then left, that's going to get us a nice flat row. At this point, after I have 2 knots, I'm going to take my other 5-foot length of cord, bend that in half as well, and I'm going to tuck that into my beadboard, and I'm going to simply tie a knot to tie that onto the center strand. So I'm just tying a knot and tying that onto the center strand. I'm going to push that up into place right next to my last 2 knots that I did, nice and tight. So all together here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of cording at the start. So now that I have these 5 pieces of cord, my 2 5-foot sections and my middle 20, I'm actually going to pick my cord back up and I'm going to do a third 5-foot section because I'm going to end up with 7 cords all together. So I'm starting off with this third section here and another 5-foot piece, and I'm going to tie that one right below. So altogether I have 6 feet and 10 inch, or 6 feet and 8 inches. So altogether it's going to look at the start like you have a big knot kind of going on there. And what's going to happen then is that I have 3 on one side, 3 cords on the other, and 1 down the center. The 3 cords that are on the right, I'm going to just angle my board a little bit. The 3 cords that are on the right here are what I'm going to use to do my first little section of knots. The center cord is always going to stay to the center. These 3 right cords are always going to stay to the right. The 3 left cords are always going to stay to the left. I'm going to continue doing my macrame, doing my little backwards 4 here, or my Snoopy nose, going over the top. So I'm ignoring all this cord over here. I'm just working with these 3. I'm going to pick that up, take my left cording there, and go through the center, and pull nice and tight to get those cords right in place. Once I've done that on the right, I'm going to do it on the left with these 3. So I make my little 4. I take my right cord now, go over top of that, and then my cording is going to go through that center nose right there. And tuck through and pull nice and tight. And there I'm ready to go on that side. I'm going to tuck this center cord in further down on my board into like the 3 section, just to pull it off a little bit to the side and to keep it out of the way. Move those cords over, and I'm going to flip over, working here with the left side. So what I just did on the right, I'm going to repeat on the left, where I'm going to do my first here. I'm going in with my right, going over top with my left, underneath, and pull through the middle of that first loop. Pull nice and tightly, and I'm going to do the same thing on the left side. Pull nice and tight. I'm going to push that all up and make sure those first knots, as I bring my beadboard back to center, I'm going to make sure that all those knots there are nice and tight and up in place. And there, I'm ready to get started. So at this point now, I'm going to put on some beads. I'm going to pick up the center strand, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a collection of beads on the center strand and then tuck it back into the bottom. So for the center strand, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to preload some of my beads. So I'm just going to take my bead here end, and I'm going to preload a bunch of beads onto my cording. So I'm going to preload about 4 of my silver beads on, and then I want to get one of these crystal pave beads on my bracelet. So with this, I'm not exactly sure where it's going to line up on the bead board, so I'm just going to put just those 5 beads on. You can line, if you're doing the same bead, you can keep going. These are going to float along my cording up and down, and I'm going to tuck that cording back into the base of the 3. The side cordings that are going to be on the side, I'm going to pick those up, and I'm going to add some of my other 6mm beads that I'm going to use on the side there as well. So I'm basically preloading some beads on my cording. So I'm going to take that center piece and I'm going to preload that as well. And I'm going to preload that with 4 beads as well. And then I'm going to jump over here on the left, take the center cord from the left, and I'm going to preload that with a couple beads also. And that's just going to save me time then as I get going and do my knotting. I'm not going to have to stop every time and put them in. Usually when I'm preloading then, what I do is tuck this in, the second cord, in down near the 5. And I just want to keep my cords in order so I know what place they are. I'm going to pick the one up on the left and preload some of that as well. So now that I have my beads kind of preloaded on, I'm going to just move them down on my cords. You want to make sure that you still have your 7 cords in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So when you're looking here, you want to have all 7 cords. They're not going to change position at all. So the cords that's on the left here and the cord that's here, they're always going to stay to the side. These cords are always going to stay to this side. I'm going to start knotting in the middle, so I'm pushing my beads kind of out of the way so you don't see them. And I am going to start with 1 bead up at the top. The 3 cords that are closest to the middle are going to be my macrame cords for the middle. I'm going to grab the cord that's on the right of that middle cord, go over top of the middle, grab the cord that's on the left of that middle cording, go over top of that one, and do my macrame knots. So I'm just working with my middle right now. I do 1, and then I'm going to do another. And that's going to push my cords up in place. Give a nice tight pull and drop your cords back down so you know where they go. I'm going to take the cord on the side now, push a bead on the side up and ready to go. I'm going to grab the side cordings here, so the 3 that are closest to the side. So the middle 2 cords that are on the sides to the right and left of the center are going to bounce from the sides to the center when I'm using my macrame cording. So I'm going to knot on this side here. I'm going to do my simple macrame cording knot. Again, if you need a little bit more help on making that snoopy ear and then going through, check out our other videos first. Once I do it on the right, I'm also going to do it to the left and pull nice and tight and get that bead there in place. Drop my cords exactly where I know they need to be. Push up my bead on the left. That wants to be part of my design here. And then I'm going to take my cording and do my 2 knots. 1 to the right, and then 1 to the left as well. The macrame cord does have a little bit of a slip, or the Chinese knotting cord has a little bit of a slip factor to it, so you want to make sure to kind of give a nice tight pull after each one. After I'm done the right, then the left, I go back to the center. Pop my next silver bead right there in the center, and I'm going to pick up the center 3 cords, the one that's always down the middle, and then the one to the left, the one to the right, and I'm going to tie my little macrame cords in place, doing my simple knotting here. And I've got it nice and tight. After both cords, pull nice and tight. Again, going back to the right hand side, slide a bead up in place, pull on the right here, and I'm making my 4, going over top of that with the left piece, and then through the middle. I do that once, and then I'm going to do it twice. Once on the right, once on the left. Now that I have the right hand 3 done, I'm going to go to the left 3, push the center bead up, and do my knots. You can see the pattern that's starting. I keep track of it by center, right, left. I know I use my center 3 cords first, pushing my next center bead in place. I'm going to use my center cords, like I said, first. Then I use my most right 3 cords. And then I use my leftmost. And then back to the center. And it's nice when you preload the beads like we did, because then it's going to be easier for you to keep going and moving quickly. Slide the next bead up. I'm going to keep going, right, left, center, and make my bracelet a little bit longer. So I'm getting ready to add my last center bead. I've gone the whole way down the sides with my pattern. And you can see where you want to end. You're usually going to end about 1 inch away. If you're doing the slip knot with us, you're going to want to end 1 inch away from where you actually want your bracelet to be. So I'm ending here at 5.5 inches because I want my bracelet to be a 6.5 inch bracelet. I'm going to do my last 2 knots here. And then what I'm going to do is start getting rid of some of my cording. So once I have my last 2 knots done and pulled nice and tight, I'm going to start getting rid of, again, some of that cording. So what I'm going to do to get rid of my cording, because I don't want all 7 pieces as part of my clasp. So to get rid of some of that, what we're going to do is we are going to be burning / cutting off and gluing some of those pieces. The pieces that I want to be left with are going to be my 3 pieces that I put beads on. Those are going to be the ones that are left. The ones here on the side, I'm going to be cutting off. The ones on the side are the first ones to go. I'm going to take my thread burner, and you can either take a thread burner, you can take a match, you can cut down with your scissors first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a little snip close to my project on both sides to get rid of those corner ones. And then I'm going to take my burner or my match or my flamethrower, whatever you want to work with, and I'm going to melt that down. It becomes very tacky, and what I'm going to do is kind of tack that against one of the other pieces. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. It doesn't have a very pleasant smell. And once that gets nice and tacky, I'm going to push it down onto another piece. So now my 2 side pieces are gone and out of the way. The next thing I want to do is get rid of some of the other cordings, and I'm going to get rid of these 2 other center cordings. Before I do that, I am going to actually decide if I want to do a little knot here on the side. I'm going to pick up my center cord, and that's going to be part of my knot. I'm going to do a knot here on this side, knot of 2 with the 3 most ones on the left, and that's just going to kind of pull it together. And then I'm going to flip over and do the same thing on the right. Again, that's just bringing all the cords into place. I'm going to do the same thing here. Doing my little knots and cording. And pulling nice and tight. So that way all my cording's ready to end right here at the bottom. And if your cording group gets a little bit loose, you can always kind of pull it tight. And then I have my knot there at the end that I'm going to use. So now again, I'm going to get rid of some of the cordings. I'm going to keep my most center strands, basically, the 2 here in the center, or I'm sorry, the 3 there in the center, and I'm going to get rid of the 2 here that are on the side. To get rid of the 2 on the side, it's just a repeat of what I've done before, where I'm going to cut short, and then I'm going to get ready to burn. Go in again with my burner here. And burn that piece down nice and small. Well, it's really nice and tacky. We're gonna kind of combine it onto another piece. Same on this side. We're gonna burn this down. Nice and warm, push it down. Now I'm left with some of my center strands here. Basically what I want to do is get rid of everything except my center wire. So I'm going to continue doing the same thing, burning off here, the 2 on the sides, and getting my center one. Once I burn off those 2 side threads, I'm just left with my middle cording here on this side, and I'm going to flip over now and work with my starting side. So the starting side, initially I put a knot in. If you can, you want to try to take that knot out. If you can't get it out, no big deal. But I'm going to take that knot out so I can get down to 1 piece of cording on this side as well. Once you get that knot loose, I'm going to pull it apart. And I'm also going to get rid of some of this cording here. If you got a gap like I did when I was pulling down, I got a little bit of a gap. So I'm actually going to unknot that cording and kind of push it down the whole way. Nice and tight towards my project. Once I have it tight towards my project, I'm going to go again and get rid of some cording. So all that I want to have is whatever cord is coming out of the middle. So again, I'm going to get these 2 side cords. I'm going to cut them short and I'm going to burn them off. So all I want to have left are 2 cords at the very end. Burn these down nice and small. If you do have 2 tips for your thread burner, this is one of those times to use your other tip. We sell replacement heads for these. It's good to use one for this that you don't use the same for seed beading. So now I have my bracelet, and I'm going to move my beadboard kind of out of the way here for us. So I have my bracelet, and I have my 2 cords that are on the ends. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a slip knot using that same macrame cord. So I have a lot more wire than I need, or thread than I need. I'm always an over thread person. I'd rather you have more than enough than get to the end and realize you don't have enough thread. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cross my threads. So the one at the top here is going towards the bottom, one at the bottom is going towards the top. If you want, you can get a bead stopper and use that to hold it together. I'm going to take an additional piece of cording then, and I'm going to tie it around those 2 pieces. So right now that's just hanging out, tied around those 2 pieces, the one that's up and the one that's down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my macrame over those 2 cords. So I'm going to do my Snoopy nose to the right ear, out through the middle, and I'm going to continue doing that knot to the left and right, a couple passes. Usually I like to do about 8 of them, so that way you can see the macrame pattern. And this would be number 3 and 4, switching sides. So you can see that nice flat macrame pattern starting. One thing that I didn't say with your bracelet while we were making it is that you can always make it a little bit more thread showing by doing more knots in between. So I did 2 knots in between all of my beads, You could do 4, you just want to keep it to an even amount. Once you have your little section of macrame, however long you want it to be, I'm on my last one here. Pull my cording through. So it's always a good idea to keep your little cording ends so you can do things like this. So I have my little macrame section there that's going to keep my bracelet all together. I have my 2 pieces here at the ends, one that I can pull one direction, one that pulls the other direction. That's how it's going to get nice and tight. For these cords here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them short and tack them down. These then at the ends, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of my beads from my bracelet on the ends of my cording, and I'm going to tie a knot, and this will just dangle off my bracelet. You do want to make sure that you leave enough cording that you can open and close your bracelet to and fit it over your wrist. So right now I'm going to burn these down, and then I'll show you how to do the slip knot, the ends of the slip knot cords on the side. So I'm using my silver bead here as my end bead, and because it has a fairly large hole, I've had to tie a double knot right over top of the one or the other. I go in then, cut that extra cording off, burn that cording down, right on top of my little end here, and that's going to be one end of my bracelet. What I was saying about making sure that it was big enough is I want to make sure that when I pull it, that it's big enough to get over my knuckle and my wrist, so that way I can slip it over my hand. I'm going to put my other bead on the other side. And here's where you can see that it's nice to glue those ends, because usually you don't have them glued. And I'm going to tie my knot on this end. If you don't put a bead on, you want to make sure to tie fairly large knots, so that way it doesn't slip off and out of your slip knot, because if it does that, then you won't be able to get your bracelet on and off. After I have my 2 knots on this side, again, trim down and burn. When it's tacky, press it down to something else. Once you have your bracelet done, the slip knots will work that you pull one way, one the other way, and it'll tighten the bracelet up and loosen it up as well. You can then take your bracelet and you can stick it on. I made mine kind of blingy. And I like it to have a tight fit like this, that you can see I'm kind of putting it over, because I don't like a ton of extra slip knot cording really hanging out there. And then you just slide one side, slide the other side as well, flip your project over, and there you have it. A nice triple strand macrame bracelet. So I know it's a long video. If you need help with that macrame knot, check out some of our other videos as well. You can use all different beads. If you don't have one of the macrame boards, which is really great for measuring and everything, you can tack it down with either tape to the table, or you can tack it down with a needle and thread. But there really is a ton of variety on this, that if you want to make it even bigger, you can use more cordings. You just have more cording then to get rid of when you get to the ends. So thanks a lot for watching. If you get a chance to check out our other YouTube videos that you can make other pretty things that I make here, as well as our other instructors. Go also to our Facebook page and check out the Potomac Bead Company or the Bead Co. If you need materials and you're not near one of our store locations, you can shop online at thebeadco.com. Thanks a lot for watching.